Hello, good morning, everyone. Thanks again for joining us here again in the Sales Leadership Podcast with Wajid and Simon. My name is Simon Rodriguez, and we look forward to sharing our experiences, sharing with you some of the lessons and best practices through our sales journey. We have been working in sales close to 20 years now, professional sales, technology sales, and we look forward to sharing our lessons, expertise, and experiences so you can use them as part of your sales journey. So, with me, I have Wajid, partner and co host here with podcast, and I'll hand it over to Wajid for introductions and we'll get started with today's topic. Over to you, Wajid.
Thank you, Simon. Good morning, everyone. As Simon said, I think he just laid the foundation for us. Just to add on that one, we started this series podcast. It's a new series. We are naming it as Discovering the Proven Sales Methodologies as we go along. In the previous episode, we did talk about the reason why we are doing it and why we should do it as sales leaders and as sales organization. What is it that we're bringing to the table and why understanding different sales methodologies are important when you go in your sales journey. So if you missed that episode, it's again, all our episodes are about 15 minutes. You can take about 15 minutes of your weekly time. You can go back and watch that episode in any time. It's always on our feed page here on LinkedIn. So you can go back and watch it. Today, we are going to jump into a couple of topics that we would like to cover in today's episode, and then we'll go along and cover the rest of some other methodologies in upcoming episodes. My name is Wajid Ali. I'm based out of Toronto, about 20 years, as Simon said, into sales and leadership and both technical and commercial sales. So the topic we're going to discuss today is most of you might have heard already, and some of them who are just new into their sales journey, this might be something of interest for you guys as well, because again, it's going to help you. And more than it's helping you, it's also helping your customers, right, to make the right decisions. So the topic we're bringing today, the first one that we're going to hit upon is the challenger sale, right? So I don't know the word challenger is very interesting when you think about it. It's basically, if I have to summarize it, it's like you're challenging the status quo. You're challenging your customers, your clients. You are actually making them or empowering them to make the right choices, right decisions. And in this entire journey, what is your role as a salesperson? You are becoming much more like a consultant or an advisor to them in making that right decision. So you're empowering them to make the right choices, the right decisions that actually suits them, their needs, their businesses, and you're helping them grow as along the same journey, you're growing yourself as well. Simon, what are your initial thoughts? What are your initial reflections? Why did we choose this topic to start with? And then we will go and have some deeper discussions about it. I
One thing,
guess you
oh,
were
perfect.
muted, Simon. You got to
I was
step.
muted. You're right. Yes. So one thing I was going to add before we go into the challenger sales methodology is importance as a summary from our previous session is why this is important to have a clear framework to guide our sales force, our sales team. Now, specifically for the challenger sales methodology, as you mentioned, it's a bit unusual because it puts you in a position to challenge that current state from the customer, and it's not always an easy thing to do or a comfortable thing to do because you need to in a certain way push back into some of the beliefs and some of the current understanding the customer has, but ultimately that's going to help that customer move into that current state and achieve that desired state of where they want to go. And I think it's important having that, as you described, more as an advisor supporting the customer through that journey, understanding, okay, this is where we are today. This is what's going to happen if we don't change the current status. And that's going to be that support throughout that journey, throughout that process. So the main aspect I will highlight for the challenger sales approach is being that advisor that is supporting that change, right? It's being open to the change, being comfortable and okay pushing some of the thinking aspects the customer might have, and obviously to your point, keeping the customer in mind with the value they're getting, the value they're trying to achieve, and basically challenging some of the belief that they might have as well within their business, their organization. But curious if this is something that you have used personally before with it in your professional experience. What are the things that you find more interesting, and why do you think this methodology is so effective?
Yeah, absolutely. I've used this approach, and I'm sure it's one of the, I guess it's fair to say that it's one of the popular approach when it comes to successful salespeople, right? If you go and ask some of the successful salespeople today, I'm sure a huge percentage would say that they're using this approach in their day-to-day, especially when they're trying to solve some complex problems for their customers, and they're trying to come up with some innovative solutions and not the one that are currently in place. So that's why it's called Challenger. I guess the word itself it describes itself. But what I like about this, and all this started, the author Matthew Dixon and Brent Adamson, they started with this approach, and then there's a book by the name of The Challenger Sales. So for all those who are interested in reading, you guys can go out and read the book by yourself and understand this whole concept and how you can use it. Here we are just touching upon it at a very high level, but some of the things that it talks about is, if we were to summarize it, it's basically teach, tailor, and then take control, right? And in the teach section, what it does is that it gives the prospect, you're not going to teach them about your products or service, but you're more so teaching them about some other significant business problems that if you were able to solve for them, it will be of significant value for them. So you are thinking out of the box. You are helping your customers, clients, prospects to think out of the box, right? And how do you do it? You do it by asking some questions. And all those methodologies is actually detailed, described in the book that I said, The Challenger Sales. So for all those that, as I said, are interested in leading, go out, read the book for yourself, and understand how you can apply this method. Simon, what are your reflections? I know we are kind of trying to cover a huge topic in a couple of minutes, but what are your thoughts about the teach approach? Then we will quickly touch upon the tailor and take control.
Certainly, yeah. I think you covered the really well on the teach aspect. The thing I will add is using the Challenger sales methodology. It really offers the customer, the prospect, a unique perspective, and this is by having those insights from the salesperson, understanding, challenging the current state, and providing those unique insights. So I see it as really helpful. Normally, what I have seen is for people using this methodology, they have a solid understanding of the customer value drivers. And that's another thing that we need to aim for, is understanding what are those customers' value drivers, what is it that they're trying to accomplish, and having that keen understanding. And once you identify those economic value drivers, that opens the doors to obviously discuss more comfortably with the customer, with the prospect. So that's but to your point, the teaching aspect obviously is start from that perspective. Any additional thoughts on your side when it comes to the other two elements in terms of control and ultimately closing the opportunity?
Yeah, let's close it with the take control concept. Simon, thank you for describing the tailor and the teach one as well. What happens is when you go through these steps, the final thing is taking control, and taking control means that you're now at the point where you're helping your customer to make a decision, right? And what happens in this situation is, again, most of the time you're not being afraid of pushing back on your client or on your customer. And why you're pushing back on them is not for basically not for your own benefit, but you're pushing them back in order to make them realize that there is a bigger benefit. So what you do is you kind of paint a bigger picture for them, and you help them visualize that if we go, instead of this route, if we go another route, you would gain much more benefits in both short terms and even in the longer terms of the processes. So we're going to wrap it up here, Simon. Let's move on to the next topic we wanted to discuss, and that was on the solution selling part. So can you describe for us, maybe in a 30 seconds, what is the solution sales, and then we can go deeper a little bit.
Yeah, and when it comes to solution selling, I'll say that's probably one of those sales methodology that have been around for many years now, and people have been using it to I think since the 70s. Perhaps that's has been one of the most like proven methodologies. One thing that to describe solution selling is a problem solving approach. That's the way I see it. It's a problem solving approach that focuses on building trust with prospect, demonstrating value, and showing how your solution, your offering is helping the customer solve a particular problem. And then your offering becomes the solution, right? And so it's very, let's say, straightforward in a way that starts by describing a problem, describing a situation. The goal and the objective is position that problem solving approach, but it starts with a problem, which a need the customer, or pain point a customer has, and then goes through that process, supporting and showing value across that that process, and ultimately solving that particular situation. But yeah, this is something again effective, has been widely used. Probably it's not as complex as other sales methodology, but it is effective. And this is something I've seen mostly used technology sales, enterprise sales, and it's something that as long as you're showing that value, that ROI to the customer, it's quite effective. But what's your take, Wajid? I know you have used it too, and what are the main things you see for this particular methodology to be effective and efficient at this point?
Yeah, thank you, Simon. I think you really summarize it in a very simplified way. Again, it's just, in other words, it's an approach where you are, again, looking at solving a problem for the customers, and how can you make that whole process simplified for your customers, prospects. And again, it all starts with prospecting. So there is a 6 essential steps formula that you can use under this solution selling methodology. And I guess it's all starting with prospecting. You have to understand what is it that you're trying to solve. What is the problem that you're trying to solve for the customer? Are you capable of it? Meaning that do you have all the resources, the tools, the equipment, the expertise, everything is, and all that you're doing is aligned with the goals of your customer or not. And if you are, then you go to the next phase, which is the qualification phase. That means that yes, at that point, now you're qualified and your customer or prospect is qualified. So you're both actually qualified to work together and move on to the next phase, which is the discover phase. And I will leave the discover phase for you. Maybe you can talk about the add value phase as well, and then we will move on to the last 2 phases.
Yeah, certainly. And I think those are the subsequent phases when we talk about those 2 is discover and adding value, right? So discover goes about asking the questions to diagnose the problem, understand those needs. When it comes to adding value is developing that customer champion as well within the organization. You can gain access to different decision makers within the company. You can understand what is driving those decisions within the organization. And in a nutshell, that summarizes those 2 stages: discovering, asking the questions, adding value, developing that champion. And with that, we need what about the final 2 stages, which will be presenting, closing? What's your view on those 2?
Yeah, so the last 2 under this methodology is, and again, we're trying to cover a very huge concept into a couple of minutes here, right? So all those who are interested to know more about it, I guess I would recommend, again, as we did on the previous one, go out, read it for yourself about solution selling. It is a methodology that is in place, as Simon said, for decades now. It all started with Mike Bosworth. He founded this solution selling approach. So go out, read for yourself. You will understand it much more better than for yourself, but you're just trying to make it simplified. Again, the last two steps are present and close. Again, in present, so after adding the value, I guess that's the point where you, I guess, both sides of the business, yourself as a salesperson and your customer as a key beneficiary, I guess, you both realize that let's move on to the next step. So you present to them your solution, and at that point, they realize the ROI, and what happens next is that you come to a mutual agreement and you do the final close. So that's in a very simple term and a very simplified way. That's how you're going to use it. I'm just being mindful of the time here. So we're going to wrap it up, guys, and folks listening to us. Thank you again for tuning in. As always, we appreciate your feedback, your comments, your inputs. Feel free to reach out to myself and Simon, and we would like to help you any way we can. Simon, any last thoughts? And then you can close it out.
Thanks, everyone, for joining this session. As we did mention, we look forward to going into more details with subsequent sales methodologies and kind of a look into the pros and cons and go from that perspective. Again, thanks for joining, and we look forward to the next session.